Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Manuel Godoy here again, and it's time to do your first lesson of the week, which is the keys to writing, man. How to make your log line. Now, first things first, I just like to say, I hope you guys had pretty good weekend. You weren't locked down like I was in New York, so you actually had a little bit of freedom. I don't know. You said we had a good time out here, but it's time to get things cracking. You know what I'm saying? So first things first, uh, I wonder how many of you actually read Save the Cat or at least looked into it. Let me know in the comments if you've already looked at Save the Cat. It's going to be pretty important for what we're about to do, and at least if you glanced at it, even if you looked online, maybe ebook, whatever, but it gets you in position to actually be able to take this course. You know what I'm saying? So let's start this up. Boom, boom, boom. So let's go here. All right, so first things first, let's go to our first slide. And boom. So the first thing we talk about is what is a log line. For many of you who are just getting into writing, you might not necessarily notice. A lot of people never focus on this particular part, and that kind of is a detriment to your long-term writing. So let's go and cover that first. What is a log line? So a 1 or 2 sentence description of your entire story. All right. This is your what you would call your elevator pitch. It has a clear main character and his or her journey. All right. A clear sense of irony in the main character's journey and a vision of the entire story and the possibilities. All right. So what we're doing is here, we're not just explaining, what the story is. We're also explaining that there could be more done in the future that is not necessarily covered here, but you could easily see how that could exist. So let's go over some movie log lines and let's just see what they got, right? So first of all, these are what we call like really, really good log lines, right? Uh, Mostly because they drive home a certain point and they obviously put a little bit of irony in people's description. So let's say with Die Hard, right? A cop comes to LA to visit his estranged wife and her office building is taken over by terrorists. All right. So there you go. That's a pretty basic one. It's nothing too good about that, right? But the whole point is it's setting up the story. It's kind of explaining it, but it's not necessarily a really strong log line. Now, when we go to ride along, this one is a really, really good log line and kind of the log lines that you need to go and replicate when you're deciding what story you want to write. So listen to this. A risk-averse teacher plans on marrying his dream girl, but must first accompany his overprotective future brother-in-law, a cop, on a ride along through from hell. So first of all, there's a couple of elements here that I want to explain. First of all, we have to understand the irony, right? This is one of the things that I said is really important in the log line is the irony. So whatever is defining about your main character should be displayed early, right? So if your main character is a violent person, put them in a scenario where they can't use violence to succeed, right? If your person is risk adverse, like here in this story, put them in a situation where they have to be brave. This is the kind of things that you do. It's irony, and it shows that there's going to be a lot of transitioning throughout the story and a lot of resistance from the actual main character. You're going to see that person conflicted throughout the entire story, whether it's a movie, whether it's a short story, whether it's a novel or a comic. They should have some kind of internal struggle exampled in their log line. All right, so that's the first thing. Risk adverse has to join a cop on a ride along, right? Next, they bring the antagonist in there as well. So the brother, is a overprotective brother. So now they're saying that this guy is probably not going to like anyone, let alone the main character, right? So he's overprotective. So they're also raising the stakes of the entire story now, right? Hey, I'm raising the stakes. I have to go and say, okay, he's not riding along with a regular cop. He's riding along with an overprotective cop. And lastly, because we want this character to have as much conflict as possible, and we can only say it in one sentence, all right? Only one sentence is going to explain like how important this is. So we have to explain it real quickly. He says his dream girl. He's marrying his dream girl, not marrying a woman or anything like that. His dream girl. This is basically the best possible person he can come up with. This is the person that he wants to live his life with forever. So you see how high the stakes are in this entire statement right here? That's a really good log line. All right. So we want to make sure that the stakes are high, that the main character is doing something against their natural nature, right? And we also want to make sure that we can understand the overall world of what's going on in the story. Another one is Pretty Woman, and that's a businesswoman falls in love. I mean, a businessman falls in love with a hooker he hires to be his date for the weekend. You see how crazy that statement is? So basically, a businessman falls in love with basically a criminal, right? That he hired, right? Probably in some weird scenario. But there's so many things left out of this on purpose, because let's say you have a reader, right? If you go too much into the details on what this story is about, you might lose that reader because they don't like that story. But if you leave it like this, they have to imagine what could possibly happen in this odd scenario, right? And that's really good. That's really good when it comes to telling a story. You want to have that kind of openness so that people can go run with the idea by themselves. You don't want to ever over explain anything. You just want to plant the seed and watch it grow. You know what I'm saying? See what else we're going to move on. So this is just breaking it down a little bit more. You know, titles are a part of your pitch. So the title of your book or series, you give a clue as to what it's about. People love names that are basically on the nose, right? So how about this one? Story about the end of the world, Armageddon, right? Story about end of the world, but not so on the nose, Deep Impact. I don't know what the hell Deep Impact was supposed to be. If I just heard the name, I don't know if it's a story about an underwater explosion or something like that. Deep Impact is very vague to me. Armageddon is very on the nose. Guess which one dominated the box office that year? All right, so let's do another one. Die Hard, right? It's basically telling you what the main character's main attribute is. If he's gonna die, he's gonna die hard, right? That's the name of the story. So we're trying to be as on the nose as possible, right? My story, Black Sands, is literally called Egypt. If you translated Egypt into regular modern day talk, it's called Black Sands. That's the ancient words for Kemet. All right. So I literally named my story about Egypt, Egypt. All right. And it's a little slick that I did it that way. But, you know, people love Black Sands, the way it sounds and everything else. But basically, that's what I called it, was Egypt. You know what I'm saying? The original name was called Kids to Kings, right? And it was kids, right, trying to become kings. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of on-the-nose names. Kids to Kings was very popular too, but we changed it to Black Sands just because we wanted to reach a little bit older audience. But these are some examples you can understand. You know what I mean? Let's see. Now let's move on to our next slide. Boom, 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 boom. So I am going to take some people's pitches. So what you can do right now is you could simply give a pitch on the below, and don't worry about nobody stealing your idea, because I guarantee you, whatever your pitch is, right? No one knows what the hell your actual story is about at all. No one knows what your story is about. No one knows who your characters are. No one knows anything about your story at all. So feel free to just put a log line over here in the comment section. I'll pull it up and I'll give a critique on what I think, how good it is. And if there are some things that I can suggest, I'll suggest it right now live. So feel free to throw out your log lines for the stories that you want to create and start thinking about which one you want to really develop. Now, let me see if I can pull up some of my log lines. Hopefully I can. Let's see. I'll look for it right now. I got them over here, so drive. Yeah. Portfolio. All right, so this is one of our stories. Don't worry about this. You haven't seen it yet, but here's the log line for it. It's called Eniola, right? So our log line for this one is, and this is a story that we're developing right now. It's about a young, selfish female martial artist visits one of her lifelong friends in Nigeria. During the visit, they are attacked by terrorists, and now our hero must go deep into enemy territory to save her friend. But her ruthless individualism could prove her downfall. So here we're setting up the story where the main character is obviously pretty self-reliant and obviously can handle herself. Problem is, now she has to go and fight terrorists in order to save her friend, and maybe she's really only caring about her friend and nobody else, even though these terrorists obviously attacked a lot of people, right? And that's going to be her detriment throughout the story, her individualism, her only about me type scenario. So it's a cool motivator, and it's something that we should be considering when we're writing our own pitches. So let me go back to the thing and let me see your comments. All right, let's see. A complete menace to society who only cares about self becomes an introverted superhero who watches over everyone. All right, so what happens here is this sounds more like a genre and less a log line. So what this says, like, there's a whole bunch of stories that could be written out of this one, right? It's not really, it's like explaining the very root pieces of a log line. So a complete menace to society who only cares about self becomes an introverted superhero who watches over everyone, right? That's kind of the story progression, but it's not the actual log line. So if we were to make a log line out of this, and I'm just going to randomly think of one, right? The school bully, who's been picking on this kid for years, is forced to protect him from a doomsday cult that's going to destroy the world. Seeing as he's the only one who can stop him, he does some whatever, even though he hates the kid, he loves the world more, or something like that. That's the kind of like these kind of the way you're thinking of it, right? You got to give him a real title, right? A real person that we can actually relate to, and then flip the script on him. You know what I'm saying? So the school bully is not a protector of the one kid, a kid that he hates, that he always bullies all the time in order to save the world that he loves, right? So he's like, hey, I got to save the world. I got to protect the kid that I usually pick on all the time, but maybe the kid's not so bad over the entire story. I might actually become friends with him. Who knows? But I'm now have to be the hero, you know, even though I was the guy who was probably the biggest jerk out of everybody. That's a flip. You know what I'm saying? Let's see what else. A billionaire fights crimes to make the city safer for his loved ones, but he neglects his relationship with his family and girlfriend while he has to put stop to a drug dealer and his stalker. All right, so this right here, it has Batman vibes, but let's not go there, right? A billionaire fights crimes to make the city safer for his loved ones, but he neglects his relationship to his family and girlfriend while he has to put stop to a drug dealer and his stalker. All right, so there's a couple of ways you can go by this. I always say like this, right? A billionaire is fighting crime, right? To make the city safer for his loved ones. Make one of his loved ones related to one of the criminals. And now you have a conflict of interest, a huge conflict of interest. Will he choose the safety of the city or will he choose family? Who knows, right? Throw something in there. Throw some spice. Let's see what else. Okay, I'll try this one here. It's another one from Carlos. An anxious girl's twin brother gets engaged to a princess from a foreign and isolated land. And when she comes to celebrate her brother's marriage, gets involved in a conspiracy to take over the country. All right, so let's see. So we got an anxious girl, twin brother, gets engaged to a princess. Okay, too many moving parts in this one. I want to know who the main character is because I'm kind of confused now. But too many moving parts. Let's move some of those parts out and let's explain a little more. All right, so we want to talk about just the anxious girl. I mean the anxious girl, right? Don't worry about twin brother gets engaged to a princess because we don't say why it matters that he's a twin brother. So let's not do that. Let's just say an anxious girl's brother gets engaged to a princess, right? Don't even worry about from a foreign and isolated land. Just say to a princess. And when she comes to celebrate her brother's marriage, she gets pulled into a conspiracy to take over the country by her brother, or maybe or something else that's saying, oh crap, I just got pulled into something big, you know. And let's make anxious a little less. It's too vague. Let's narrow that down to what really is the defining trait about her, and then flip that over. All right, let's see. Okay, Mama Brown calls it quits. A self-doubting community activist believes she can save the world one youth at a time. Okay, so Mama Brown calls it quits is the name of the book, I assume. A self-doubting community activist believes she can save the world one youth at a time. Okay, a self-doubting community activist, right? So let's change that a bit. A self-doubting community organizer, right, believes she can save the world one youth at a time, but now she must be the face of the movement. See, self-doubting now has to be the face. If you say community activist, that means that they're extrovert. And if they're extrovert, they're not self-doubting, right? Because self-doubting is an introvert thing. So just think about that. When you're writing this, a self-doubting community organizer, that's somebody behind the scenes, might not necessarily be the face of the movement. Activist is the face of the movement. So let's change that, right? And it's a really cool, slick move. And you can easily transition out of that one, all right? That's how you improve that one. That's a good one. An ancestral chosen time jumper is ready to take on her destiny. But is she ready for the deception and betrayal of her own family? Well, time jumping is always a complicated issue. An ancestral chosen. I really can't copy. I can't deal with this one right now. I don't necessarily know how to. It's just a little hard, just based on how it's set up. Try to rewrite this like 3 or 4 times and look at which one seems the most clear to you, and then we could talk about that. Greetings all. Did I know this class today? Did I miss anything? Nope, not really. Okay, here you go. Here's Carlos going again. All right, the leader of a popular idol girls group has a secret relationship with a boy that hates idols, and her agency forbids relationships. All right, so this is actually a really good one, right? This is actually a really good one. I wouldn't change it much. The only thing is I'd obviously be specific about who this is, but it looks pretty good so far. The leader of a popular idol girls group has a secret relationship with a boy who hates idols. All right. So instead of saying the leader of a popular idol girl group, what about this? And this is actually changing up the story a bit, or maybe it's not. I don't know. But this is a good way to do this. One of the most popular idols in the country, right, has a secret relationship with a boy who hates idols. And her, don't worry about the agency forbids relationships. Uh, uh, so this is how we set it up, right? Uh, one of the country's most popular idols, right, uh, has a relationship with a boy who hates idols. So she hides her identity, becoming a typical shy girl. How will she deal with this and the rigors of the limelight? Right, something like that. Something like that. All right. This makes it more high pressure, right? Where the girl is literally the thing that he hates, right? But inside, he's everything she loves. I mean, she's everything he loves. So if she reveals that secret, the whole relationship's gonna fall apart. So this drama of her dealing with him and having to deal with the fact that she's the most popular idol out there and she can barely avoid the press makes it a super dynamic story that's probably gonna be funny as hell. You know. Let's see what else we got here. A group of orphan African-American young adults who were raised as siblings by an ex-military Catholic priest who trained them and taught them how to protect the city. It's a basis. So this is like a part of the summary. It's not the log line. All right. So the log line is introducing you to the main character, whoever the main character is, what's their story, and what's the overall theme of the entire world that we're in. All right. So this one doesn't necessarily do that. Just has a whole bunch of names. Let's see. A boy's grandfather dies, and a boy finds out that he is the heir to his family's time-traveling legacy. All right. Throw something in there that makes him either not like time traveling or loving time traveling, right? But there are huge issues with time traveling, right? One or the other. Either someone who hates the past doesn't want to visit the past, but now is forced to go into the past, right? But he hates it, right? So that's one story. The other story is the boy wants to change everything in the past, but the butterfly effect happens. If he does it, things mess up. So it's one or the other. Either a reluctant time traveler or a time traveler who's so into time traveling, but now they're messing up a whole bunch of things by doing it. You understand? So those are the two main ways you can play with the time traveling thing. Let's see. Jamel Wilson says, an introverted young man dreams of the end of the world so that he may show his family the depths of which he will go to protect them, and that day comes. Okay. Dead Dreams. Dead Dreams seems like a pretty decent name for the story. Dreams into the world so that he may show his family the depths of which he will go to protect them, and that day comes. How about this? A young man wants to prove to his family that he will protect them, even though they don't think he's useful. Until he sees a vision of the end of the world, which comes. And now he must do what he always wanted to do, right? Or he's forced to do what he always said he could do, right? That's it. Something like that, right? He said, don't worry about the introverted young man. Don't worry about that. He wants to protect people. Let's deal with that, right? He wants to protect them. People don't believe that he can protect them. and then he sees something, and boom, now it's up to him, and he might not be ready, but he's gonna try. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's see. I don't want to skip around too much. Let's see. I haven't heard from. Okay, that's a different version of the same one. I like this one better. That's a different version of the same time traveling one, and I like this one better. I do. Another. Okay, the story is Another, right? That's the name of the story. Not necessarily short. It's kind of short, so we'll see. We'll see. It's definitely not on the nose. In a world where a terrorist organization has subjugated a group of nations, a group of teenagers will, with unique powers, join forces with a resistant group to destroy the terrorist organization. All right, so this is a thesis. This is your summary, right? This is like the summary. This tells me what the story is. It doesn't tell me at all about why I should care about this compared to somebody else with another terrorist fighting superhero group. You understand what I'm saying? That's what the log line is for. The log line is to tell me why I should care about your story as opposed to someone else who's writing the same kind of story, the same thesis. All right. So in our story, what we're doing here, find a main character. Find a main character. I'll give you a good example. Have y'all seen the movie Battle Los Angeles, right? Battle Los Angeles. Aliens attack the world, right? And they blow up most of Los Angeles. And now the military is coming in. Now here's the log line, and it's an example of the log line if I was using the same way this particular one is written. And we're going to rewrite this one, all right? Because I want you to make a log line that's going to blow people away and get people excited, right? So this is the log line that you made just right now in the Battle Los Angeles, right? A group of aliens attack Earth, and now it's up to a group of U.S. military personnel to go back to L.A. and take it back from the aliens, right? That's like that's basically what it is. You're explaining what kind of story it is, but there's a billion stories that could be written off of that, right? It's just explaining what's going on. Now let's look at that same exact way, the way the movie was actually written, right? So the movie is a fallen soldier, a fallen sergeant who has an entire unit killed and feels grief and remorse, never wanting to lead people again, is forced to command a unit of soldiers when aliens invade LA and they're the only survivors. Okay, so look at that. The story is not about a group of soldiers. The story is about the one sergeant who got his men killed, and now he has to go and lead people again, even though he was never planning on leading people ever, right? And this is gonna haunt him throughout the entire story. Sure, there's aliens attacking the city. Sure, there's awesome sci-fi and there's military troops and all this tactical stuff. But at the end of the day, the story is about the sergeant who got his men killed, but now is forced to lead, or everyone's going to die. That's the story. All right. So let's work on that, and let's think about that when we're writing these things. Let's see. Gentile, what's up, Gentile? This is the second time you're in this class now, right? This is the second time around. In a world of mirrors, a man who hates his own reflection must take it upon himself to see himself for who he really is. It's kind of cool. I like it. I like it. I still don't know what it is about, but at least that makes people think. This one right here is good because it makes people think. I don't necessarily know what it's about, right? Like, give some hints as to what genre it is. All right. That's about all I can say about this one, is just give a little hint as to what the genre is, because right now I don't know what the genre is, you know? All right, let's see here. A brilliant African scientist working on Mars has her invention stolen. Now, with the help of her telekinetic brother and his warrior faction, they must retrieve the tech before it's used to destroy Earth. All right. I like this one. There's a little too much specifics in there, right? So let's go and let's actually strip this one down a bit. All right. A brilliant scientist. Don't say African for now. All right. Just keep a brilliant scientist. Trust me, this is just selling thing, right? You never know who you're talking to. So a brilliant scientist working in space. Don't worry about Mars. Maybe someone hates Mars, but they like space. In space, has her invention stolen. What does the invention do? The invention creates unlimited energy or something like that. Say something that sounds way kind of dangerous, right? But it's great, right? Unlimited energy, unlimited power, taps into the sun. Something that's like that's big and potentially dangerous, right? And then say, but her invention is stolen, right? Now we understand, oh, wait a minute, this really big idea that she made that could potentially save millions of people now might kill millions of people. Uh-oh, big doomsday scenario. Now she has to turn to her brother who is in the underground or a criminal or whatever in order to save Earth, right? Don't even worry about destroy Earth or whatever. Just say save Earth. People understand if you're saving Earth, Earth is most likely going to be destroyed. And you cut that down. You just cut it down, and you make it where it's just simply a brilliant scientist who created the means to have unlimited energy or some kind of big grandiose thing, has her work stolen by terrorists. And now she must turn to her brother, who's a criminal, in order to do what needs to be done to save the Earth. Boom. Do what needs to be done. So this is not something she likes doing. She likes following the rules, right? So maybe you say, instead of a brilliant scientist, you say a brilliant by the books scientist, right? By the books. Oh, look, she's by the books. She's not going to change from what exactly is allowed in procedure. So she's by the books. And now she has to deal with criminals, right? In order to get stuff done. Something that people who are by the books never do. That's not their philosophy, to get stuff done. All right. But for the most part, that's dope. That's a dope one right there. You can do a little bit of adjustments and make that one of the best log lines that we've heard in a long time. So kill it. Ooh, this is a good one. I like this one. This is good because you can write a really good story off of this one. He said, one man's crusade to dismantle a system where crimes are forgiven based on good deeds. All right. So the one thing you should do there is throw something horrible into this man's life, right? Early. So a man who had his wife murdered, right? Or her son or his son murdered, right? Goes on a crusade to dismantle a system where crimes are forgiven based on good deeds, and society loves it. All right, and society loves. So in other words, everyone accepts that this system is amazing, except for the dude who lost his son, right? And he's looking at people like, why are you people loving this so much, you idiots? He said, I don't care what good he does. He killed my son. All right. So there you go. Right. And I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna stop there right now because that's a lot of pitches I went through. But basically, that's what we're going with this. Right. That's the idea of the log line. And I hope that my critiques of some of these, right, and maybe some wording adjustments, stuff like that, helps you start thinking about, ways you can improve your own log lines. I know you don't want to give names, right, because you think someone might steal it. Trust me, no one's going to steal your stuff because they have to make an entire book based off of that one sentence idea. And they ain't going to be able to do that. They just ain't. That's why I gave you my log line for Iniola, because I'm like, what are you going to do with it? Like, I gave you basically a genre story, but I didn't give you nothing else. You know what I mean? So I think you guys are stronger for it. Now, what I need you to do is work on some log lines for your stories. You have your 3 stories. What I want you to do is make at least 5 log lines for each story. That's 5 different versions of what the story's about. Main character is the log line topic. I don't care if there's a whole group. I don't care if there's an army fighting each other. I don't care if the main character is a zombie. So long as the main character is clear, right? Make them travel through the story in this one log line. It should tell them the story of the main character, right? Let's focus on that. Remember the example I gave about Battle of Los Angeles, where I said it could be aliens invaded LA, and now the army has to fight back to defeat the alien army, and that could be you know, it's a summary, but it's not a log line, right? The log line for the story is the sergeant who got his men killed in previous wars now is going to lead people, even though he was planning on retiring, never to lead people again during an alien invasion. Right? It's like the aliens. You could have thrown anything in there, and the story would have still been good. You could have thrown, instead of alien invasion, you could have said in the battle for Normandy, or in a sneak attack by the Luftwaffe, or at Pearl Harbor. You can throw it. You could throw this scenario in a whole bunch of. Doesn't matter. That's just for the history buffs. That one little part. That's for the people who want to see a sci-fi movie or want to see a fantasy movie, you know, in the Battle of Two Towers and freaking Lord of the Rings. But the main story about this guy got people killed, and now he's forced to lead people, right, in the future. That's the real story that we're looking at. We're seeing how he deals with that, whether he'll break or whether he'll succeed, right? That's the real story. The other part is the genre, like, hey, aliens, right? So think about that when you're making your log lines. Now I'm gonna take some questions from people for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we're done. All right. So and by the way, the next class is going to be on Friday, 8 p.m. All right. And if you need to contact me, just contact me on Discord through the Patreon. All right. You got Patreon. You get in there. You can contact me, and I'll answer some questions, maybe help you out with your log lines. Okay, let's see. All right, so Michelle came in a little late, so I'll go and do hers. Why not? The 10th century Moorish, in 10th century Moorish Spain, a vizier of a lazy prince recruits an imam, a rabbi, and a cardinal to defend the land from invasion of a wicked jinn. All right, so we don't want to be too specific, because it means that you must have prior knowledge of other people's cultures in order to understand this this thing. So how about this, right? In the 10th century of Spain, right? In the 10th century, Spain, or not even go there, right? Let's just say in medieval Spain. There you go. In medieval Spain, I don't even know what a vizier is, so I don't necessarily know what that word means. So the advisor, how about that? The advisor, all right? So in medieval Spain, the advisor of a lazy prince, right? Or some other word for lazy. I don't necessarily like lazy prince. I think something more like a greedy prince, or something like that. In that sense, we have to make it more like he's not lazy, he's incompetent, right? Or yeah, the advisor of an incompetent prince takes matters into his own hands by recruiting 3 religious leaders from opposing beliefs, right? 3 religious leaders from opposing beliefs to fight the overwhelming forces of an ancient demon. You understand? Notice how I'm not using any like specific religious ideas. Because what happens is when you use specific religious ideas, if y'all don't know what an imam is, I don't know what the hell the log line means. If I don't know what a vizier is, I don't know what, I can't even read it sometimes. Like I'm trying to read this and it's just very, I have to like reference what a rabbi is, what an imam is, right? What's a cardinal? Why not a bishop? This is like there's too many high level information that unless you're a scholar, this log line is going to obliterate you mentally. So like I said, it's just this. In medieval Spain, the advisor of an incompetent priest takes matters into his own hands, recruiting 3 religious leaders of opposing factions to fight the evil forces of an ancient demon. Not a wicked jinn, because then that's a reference again. Jinn, if you said genie, people will probably understand that more because that's more common tongue. Jinn is more specific, right? So even then, we could say genie, right? We could say jinn, but that's so specific, people might not understand that. Ancient demon, people are like, okay, I know what a demon is, right? That's a bad guy with superpowers, right? So everybody understands that, okay? So think about that when you're looking at, when you're thinking about your log line. Simple language, all right? Simple language is very important. All right, let me see. I don't want to miss any questions here, so let's see. I edited my log line so it could be 200 characters, which made me wonder, is there a length word count we should limit our log lines to? No, 1 to 2 sentences. 1 to 2 sentences. That's how long it is. Whether that's really long sentences or not is up to you. But basically, if you can't get it out within 3 floors on the elevator, it's too long. So when you hear ding, ding, and you hear that 4 times, if you still talking, it's too long. All right. I already went through those. Okay, let's see. All right, so I guess there's no questions for me today. So let's hear some amazing log lines on Friday, right? Let's work on this. It's very important that you get these log lines down. And while you're working on that, also work on your summary, okay? Because your summary is basically explaining the world that your log line defines, right? Your log line is telling you the story of the hero. The summary is telling you the story of the hero as it pertains to the story of the world. So in other words, this is where you talk about why the aliens are attacking Earth. This is why you talk about why the military sucks at fighting the aliens. And this is where you talk about why this guy and his leadership capabilities, even though he's so damaged, is critically vital to the success of humanity, right? This is the summary. That's the summary. All right. So the summary is the main character as it pertains to the actual world from which they're living in. That's the summary. The log line is the story of the main character, why we should give a damn about the main character. All right. Okay, I got some questions that came in at the last second. Let's see. All right, being that I want to write stories for people of color being the main characters is a special way to pitch when dealing with potential non-melanated investors. Yeah, exactly what I said. You know where I said black African, when they said a brilliant African scientist in space, I said don't say African. The reason why I say don't say African is because your cover should show that. Your cover should show an African scientist. Right? It should literally show an African scientist. So you don't have to say it. People look at the cover and say, that's a black woman or a black man or whatever. Right? So that's it. You don't have to do nothing else past that. With that being said, because we didn't use African, right? When we're talking to somebody, like I said, even if they're non-melanated, if they're white folks, they're going to hear that log line and say, that's a badass story. I want to read that. I love sci-fi. And I've seen one of my friends who went to one of my conventions. He was a student of mine, finished his book. God bless him, right? He sold like 60 copies of his book at my booth, and I didn't sell a single one. I didn't suggest it. I said, hey, you're in charge of selling your book. Use the log line that we worked out, because he had to work. First of all, his log line was terrible when he first said it, right? And I've made him write down the log line with actually using the elements in the story, not hiding them. One thing that he was doing was he was hiding his story so much, no one knew what the hell it was about, except for it was sci-fi. That was it. They didn't know what the actual story was, because he wanted to hide the most juicy details about the story so you don't spoil it, right? But how are you going to spoil a story in one sentence? So we changed that, and then he sold 60 copies, and he was selling them to black, white, Asian. It didn't matter. He stopped them. He closed them with the same log line. Asked them, hey, here you go, check it out. After he dropped his log line, he stopped talking, because I told him to stop talking, let them talk at that point, and he was just selling them left and right. So it's very important that we kill our log line, because that's your pitch. That's you selling it to somebody. And if you can do that, everything you write past that point should be referencing this log line, because this is what sold it to them. This is why people care. You understand? Let's see. It's a good one, and the answer is it is a talking point. All right, it's not something that you're going to use in the back of the book, although you'll probably reword it in the back of the book. So what happens is the log line is what sells the book, right? So you kind of want people to think of that when they're making a decision. So you write it in the back, right? And but you write it in a certain way. So you write it in a different kind of way, like you kind of doing a short summary of what the story is about, and then at the last second, your last question, you're asking a question related to the log line. So what will our reluctant hero do, now that he's faced with blah 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 blah? You understand? It's like that's the last question that goes in the back after the summary that sets it up. All right, so it's there, but it's not exactly as it would be shown on your work, and definitely not what you're doing to pitch people. When you're pitching people, it needs to be short and sweet, 1 or 2 sentences. Can I do more log lines for more stories than the ones you critique? Yeah, it has nothing to do with me. What you're working on is entirely up to you. All I'm saying is by the end of week 2, you're going to pick one story. You're not going to work on multiple stories. You're going to pick one, and you're going to finish it. All right? If you only have one, then that's great, because that means that you don't have to stress yourself out. Just focus on that one. Where are the best ways to promote your book? Finish your book first. Don't ask me where the best place to promote your book. Finish your book first. Let's focus on the first thing. Let's see. Yep, that's it. All right. Good luck, guys. Knock out that homework assignment. Log lines. I want to see log lines over and over, and then I want you to go and explain it to your friends, because they locked down too in quarantine, right? And say, hey, which one you think is the best log line? And you keep trying it and trying it and trying it until you narrow it down to where you could sell it to anybody. Anybody out there will be like, yo, that sounds like it might be pretty dope, So practice, okay? Summaries about 3 paragraphs. Look it up. Summaries are pretty easy, right? Main thing is summaries more further away. It's like, hey, here's the whole story as a whole, and here's my character's journey through the whole story. Logline is, this is my main character's problem, and this is how he must fix it. You understand? So, all right. See you guys later.